So this is lesson for day 119. Sorry I wasn't here yesterday. This was supposed to be yesterday's lesson. The steps are the same as yesterday. So before we start, you don't need to write down the steps. But make sure you write down day 119, Pascal's triangle, binomial theorem, a not equal to 1, and then also your objective for today. Let's have the students write this down, and let's have the teacher pause the video here. Okay, students should have written this down. So we're going to do the same thing as before. We're going to talk about Pascal and his triangle. I'll pull that up for you. And this is the same thing as before. So remember, we see patterns in math. We can apply this in many different ways. We're actually going to do an activity later today using Pascal's, or that you're going to see the pattern, I hope you do, to solve just like a real-life application problem. It's not going to be too difficult. Okay, but today we're going to do the same thing we did the other day, but those just going to be more difficult problems. So students, you don't need to write this down, and it's on the board anyway. So here we go. Numbers 1. I'll do number 1 and we'll do 2 together, okay? So number 1, I'll model it for you, so just watch right up here. You can write as I go, I suppose. So just like before, we had 2y minus 1, excuse me, all to the third power. So the first thing I notice is I have my first term is 2y, and my second term is negative 1, and then my exponent is 3. So I'm going to go to my Pascal's triangle to the third level, and I notice at the third level, what are my coefficients? 1, 3, 3, and 1. So I'm going to do what I did the other day. Write down 1, 3, 3, and 1. Okay? Let's spread it out a little bit more. 1, 3, 1. Okay? Then the first coefficient is 2y, so I'm going to write 2y. And I'm going to put it in its own parentheses. 2y to the third, 2y to the second, 2y to the first, and 2y to the 0 power. Next thing that I want to do is write down negative 1. Negative 1, I'm going to start the opposite, 0. Negative 1 to the 0, negative 1 to the first, negative 1 to the second, and negative 1 to the third. Okay? So now I have all my expressions set up, so I'm going to start solving these. So we got negative 1, anything to the 0 power is 1. Okay? So 1 times 1 is 1. 1 times 2y to the third. Okay, so 2y to the third. Let's do the 2 first. 2 to the third is 8, and y to the third is 8y to the third. So times the 1 we had before is going to be 8y to the third. That's our first term. Second term, we have negative 1 to the first. Okay, negative 1 to the first is negative 1. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. Okay, and then we got 2y squared. 2y to the second power is going to be 4y squared. 4y squared times negative 3 is going to be negative 12y squared. Okay, it's kind of confusing, right? You have to be careful with those negatives. It's a little bit more advanced, I suppose. Okay, and we got negative 1 all to the second power is going to be 1. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 times 2y to the first is positive 6y. Okay, and then we got negative 1 to the third is negative 1. Negative 1 times 1 is going to be negative 1, and then 2y to the 0 is 1, so it's going to be all minus 1. That's your final answer. Okay, so Pascal's triangle helps us to do a more advanced problem like this much more easily. Alright, so that's number 1, and that's all I'm going to model for you, because this is the same thing we did before, right? Yes? Okay, so why don't we have the teacher pause the video here. Let's have students talk. See, today's Thursday, so let's have the fours talk today. Fours will talk and teach the rest of the group about how to do number 1. Ready, set, and go. Alright, so what I should have done is put I like number 3 better than number 2 to do next, because it's a little bit easier. Number 2 is a little bit harder, so we're going to go to number 3. Okay, so let's write down number 3. We're doing this together with Mr. Rink. Okay, so write down the original problem. Okay, ready? All right, what's my first term in my binomial, everyone? 3, what? 3v, good. That's my first term. Okay. Second term? -1, good. What's my exponent? Good. So what's going to be my set of coefficients in this one, everyone?
1, 4, 6, 4.
Okay, so let's write that down. 1, 4, 6, 4, and 1. Kind of spread out. Okay. Next thing. We got 3v, so let's write this down. We're going to start with our 3v. Now, notice that I'm putting 3v into its own parentheses because I want to make sure I have each of my exponents set up. So we got 3v to the 4th, 3v in its own parentheses to the 3rd, 3v to the 2nd, 3v to the 1st, and then 3v to the 0 power. Then we're going to go the opposite direction too, starting with -1. Start with the 0 power. We're going to go opposite, go ascending order now. -1 to the 1st, -1 to the 2nd, -1 to the 3rd, then -1 to the 4th. Okay, and when I do this, check your papers along with me. Look at my exponents on each expression. You see how my exponents add up to 4? You'll notice that? All notice that?
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's like a little check before you start working. It would be really lame for you to do all that work and then set it up wrong. So we want to make sure we set it up right. Okay, I feel pretty good about this, so we're going to start working this out. Okay, so first term, here we go. So anything to the 0 power, everyone, is 1. 1 times 1 is 1, right? So all I really have to worry about is 3v to the 4th. Okay, so let's do 3 to the 4th. What's 3 to the 4th? What's 3 times 3? Times 3? Times 3? 81. Okay, 81. Start getting used to that, okay? And then v to the 4th is just v to the 4th, okay? Cool. That was easy. Next one. We got -1 to the 1st is -1. What's -1 times 4? -4. So I'm going to keep that in the back of my head now. What's 3 to the 3rd? 27. Good. What's 27 times -4?
108.
-108. Good. Excellent. -108, and then we got v to the 3rd. Make sense? Next one, we got -1 squared. What's -1 squared? +1 times 6 is 6, right? 6. Now let's keep that in the back of our head. What's 3 squared? Okay, what's 9 times 6? 54 times v squared is going to be positive 54 v squared. Okay? Next one, we got -1 to the 3rd. What's -1 to the 3rd? Times 4? -4. Good. We'll keep that in the back of our head. 3 to the 1st is? 3 times our -4? -12. And v to the 1st, which is -12v. Does this make sense so far? Am I going too fast? Okay, good. Last one. What's -1 to the 4th? 1. Good. What's 1 times 1? What's anything to the 0 power? So what's 1 times 1 times 1? So our answer is +1 right here. Okay, that's your answer. Yeah. Cool. So that one we did together. We'll do one more. I'm gonna go back to number 2. I want this to be your last one. You can work with your group. I'll give you a few minutes here. So let's have the teacher pause video here. Let's have students do number 2 on the board. So students are doing this. You can work with your group members. I'll give you about 4 minutes to do this. Okay, ready, set, and go. Okay, so here we go. So I'm going to give you the answer now. So you should have had written down the fourth level of the Pascals, okay? And then you should have written down your first term, which is 4y to the fourth. Notice I put in parentheses each time. I'll see that? Okay, and the second term is negative 1. You got negative 1 to the 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's all in ascending order. Does that make sense? Awesome. So now we have to work this out carefully, right? So the first one, you're going to have negative 1 to the 0 times 1 is, or negative 1 to the 0 is 1 times 1 is 1. So 4 to the fourth is 256 times y to the fourth is 256 y to the fourth. So times the 1, you still have, oh, and then 4 to the fourth is 16, right? When you raise the power by a power, you multiply. Okay, the next one, you should have negative 256 y to the 12th plus 96 y to the 8th minus 16 y to the 4th plus 1. Okay, that's your final answer. I think I did that right. Does that look good to you? You all trust me, I know. I'm pretty sure I did that right. So, you see how complicated it could get, right? Imagine doing this problem by foiling it, right? It would take a long time and be very complicating. So that's the nice thing we have about Pascal's. Okay, that concludes the lesson. So what kids are going to do next in my class is you're going to go to textbook page 358. Since we're talking about Pascal's, you know, we've done a lot of procedural, boring stuff in math, so now I want you to apply it a little bit in a different way. So you're going to come grab a textbook, maybe one per group or per partner, and then talk about page 358. You're going to do the whole thing, and that's it. Okay, that concludes the lesson. Thank you.